All right. Hi, welcome to the tavern. I am getting on here just a few minutes later tonight than intended, but it's because there was actually quite a bit I needed to gather together for this episode. So we are in episode 6 of hey guys, thanks for joining me. We're in episode 6 right now of the Tavern live stream, and I'm wearing my time traveler shirt from Penny River Costumes. So, can you get me a beer? Kidding. Yeah. Hey, we are in a tavern. Why not? So, thanks. Cheers, huzzah. This is one of my favorite mugs that I purchased from one of my favorite. Hey, Fannie and Finn, thanks guys for joining me. Watching from Southern California, nice, I love it. Cool, so, all right, well, glad to have everybody. As you know, people come in, cheers, definitely. But this is one of my favorite mugs that I got from Fort Frederick a couple years ago, and it's a replica of a mug that is out of one of the catalogs from Jamestown. So yeah, I absolutely love this. I'm actually drinking tea. I know that's not very tavern-like, but tonight I feel more like tea. So it's Twining's Lady Grey tea. So what are you drinking? So just tell me. Just drop it in the comments. You know, tell me what you're drinking right now. So, all right. So I'm gonna take a swig here. And I don't know if you can see my little tavern setup over here. I'll try to move this over. I do have burning candles, so I need to be careful. I don't want to knock everything over, and then that would be a disaster. But, okay, well, so just a little brief update about where this is. Boring water. Hey, you know, if there's nothing, I don't know, nothing boring about water. It's good for you, you know. Hey, but I'm just gonna talk a little bit about. Am I a paranormal investigator? No, I am not. I have sat in on investigations before. I do have an interest in the paranormal, especially haunted history. I have mentioned I do love Gettysburg. I have an obsession with the Farnsworth House. I've been on some ghost tours, and one of the things I want to do when I go back to Gettysburg is actually go on an actual ghost hunt. I wouldn't call myself an investigator though, just more like somebody who is who takes an interest, especially in things like haunted history and old houses, and you know, just their history, and you know, the people that lived there and everything, and you know, what activity might you know, who hasn't maybe crossed over yet. So I do hold an interest in that though. But a little bit of an update. Thanks for the question, though. That's a really cool, interesting question. I love it. So, but a little bit of an update on this live stream. I was originally doing pretty much all of my live streaming from my Facebook page. And this was even before the Tavern live stream was the Tavern live stream. I started live streaming maybe like at around this, probably a little after this time last year. I was live streaming a little bit here and there, but I started doing it more so, especially when COVID and all of that hit. But but you know, just because, you know, that was pretty much what was the outlet that we had. Plus, I think it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool way to connect with people, and you know, and just you know, do things like, you know, you can play music, you can have you know, little conversations, get-togethers, things like that. But you know, and then it slowly kind of evolved into having the Tavern live stream, and that was sort of like a spur of the moment thing that I decided to kind of start doing. And I was originally doing it for my Facebook page, but then when I decided to start having some guests on a couple episodes, for some reason Facebook seems to make it a little bit difficult for you to not necessarily live stream itself from a business or artist page, but to live stream to where you have guests on, like to do the split screens thing. For some reason, like if you have a business or an artist page or something like that, it's just that, I don't know, they don't make it very easy, because I tried it. I didn't try it with April from Fashions Revisited. She and I, we did ours on Instagram Live, and it actually, after like a little bit of, you know, finagling and everything, it worked pretty well. And also, but then when I tried to do Facebook Live with Phannie and Finn of Fannies Fancies, and then Fannie's Boozy Boozy's Jams and Jelly. I don't know if I could talk tonight, but and then the week after with Fair May, we tried to you know, do it on Facebook, and it just didn't work. So we had Instagram as a backup. Well, it turned out Instagram seems to work better for that right now, and thankfully now with Instagram Live, the video doesn't go away after 24 hours. In fact, you can actually keep the video, post it to your IGTV, and then download it so that you can then upload it onto all of your other platforms. So thankfully that changed with Instagram Live. So because that seems to be what really seems to work right now for the live stream. For the Tavern live stream right now, especially for when I want to have guests. So Instagram Live is going to be right now the home of the Tavern live stream. So whenever I do that every first and third Friday night of the month, it's going to be here on Instagram Live. So so that's one. And also, I'm going to be kicking off every episode, even on ones that I have guests on. I'm going to be kicking off the episodes with some announcements, because, you know, there are some cool things that are coming up, not only with the live stream, but like even just in general. And I think that that's going to be a nice little segue into having the guests. Well, I mean, whether I have guests or not, that's how it's going to be. But I think that'll be a nice little segue into having you know, having the guests on, because that'll give them time to log on and do their thing, and then that'll give me time to let them in, and it won't be, it's not going to be like just this kind of the awkward, okay, are they on, you know, and even if I do have to do that to an extent, I'll still be talking about other things too, so it won't just be like this kind of little awkward pause in the beginning before we actually begin. So trying to get these things to run as smoothly as possible. You know, just kind of bear with me. We're like this kind of learning this as we go. It is what it is. So and I have my cheat sheet here because there's a ton I'm going to be talking about tonight, especially women of the taverns, so of the early taverns, which I'm really excited to talk about. It's a very, very fun subject, and especially with it being Women's History Month, I thought it was this would be a good subject to tackle for the first episode of March. So, yeah, so now I am going to show you my little table setup, and then I'm going to give you a couple of product reviews. So, alright, so for tonight's setup, other than my favorite Jamestown inspired mug. All right. We have, once again, the Camp Coffee candle by Fannies, Boozy, Jams, and Jellies. They just released a candle line, and I'm also going to get into my most recent purchase from them. They were actually guests on the show a couple weeks ago, but they just released a candle line. They have their battlefield candles and then their lady candles. I love it. So, but this is the Camp Coffee one. I thought it would be perfect for the tavern, and it's absolutely lovely. It's coffee with hints of vanilla and toffee, and it's a really, really nice aroma. And you'll also know that I think many of you that have been following me for quite some time and have been on and have watched a few earlier episodes of the Tavern live stream, know that I am also a big fan of Mythology Candles. And what Mythology Candles is they are a fantasy themed candle company, and they specialize in tale-inspired candles, especially like Lord of the Rings, the Narnia Chronicles, things of that nature. They're great for, they have some RPG or role-play game, themed, inspired candles such as Dwarven Forge. They have a, right now they do have a Narnia themed Always Winter Never Christmas candle set available, but they do change their candles out with the seasons. So whatever you see that they have on their website right now, that might only be for a limited amount of time. But tonight, from their Middle-earth or Lord of the Rings inspired candle collection, I have the Ranger. This is their 2-ounce candles. I got this. I bought this from their. It was like a sample pack that they were having of the Middle-earth Lord of the Rings inspired candles. This is the Ranger. It smells like pure leather, and I figured, hey, we're in a tavern, we can have a pure leather smell. But the Ranger, obviously, if you're familiar with the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the Ranger is inspired by Aragorn, and who doesn't love Aragorn? Come on. And then also, I have another Mythology candle. I don't want to, let's see, try to pick this up here without, yes, alright. There you go. So this is the Alchemist. The Alchemist was the candle that they released at Halloween time, and it has, let's see here, notes of earthy patchouli, powdery sandalwood, spicy cinnamon, cedarwood, and amber, and the mood is frayed scrolls, ancient tomes, and vials fill the dimly lit laboratory. Bubbling liquid carefully measured. The alchemist brews his next magical potion. So that kind of gives you an idea of where Mythology Candles is coming from. But yeah, this is the Alchemist that I am also burning tonight in the tavern. So that is my little setup. Okay, so now on to the reviews. All right, so I recently, like I said, had Phannie and Finn from Fannie's Boozy, Jams, and Jelly on the live stream a couple weeks ago, and they were the guests. Yeah, so they were I think they were on in the beginning. Yeah, they would have been on in the beginning of February, because then Fair May was they were my guests the 3rd week in February. But I met, but just a little brief history for those that might not yet be aware. I met them while in Gettysburg last September, and they had a very, very charming tent setup, and I noticed that they had homemade jams and jellies. And of course I was intrigued. I'm always looking to, you know, support local businesses, especially local businesses that support other local businesses, because they do source locally. Their product is organic, which I also appreciate. And they have, and I first purchased their red wine jelly, which I have used quite a bit. And then I also purchased their Dan Sickle Peach Orchard, the Peach Orchard jelly, which is also very, very enjoyable. But then this kind of caught my attention and my curiosity, especially since they kind of recommended it to me when I had them on the live stream back in February. This is the Devil's Den Hot Pepper Jam. All right, and it has hot peppers, onions, spices, sugar, pectin, and Fireball whiskey. Yeah, so their their product is also alcohol infused. So, and then this is the Tilly Pierce Pina Colada Jam. It has pineapple, coconut, lemon, sugar, pectin, and Malibu rum. So they have become a huge part of my meal prep. But I was very, very intrigued about trying this combination of jams, because they recommended mixing this together and putting it on a chicken dish. So, of course, yeah, like I said, I was quite intrigued by that, and I was just like, hey, why not? You know, I really liked the sweet red wine, I really liked the peach orchard, so I was like, you know, why not? This sounds like it would be really, really good on chicken. Well, so I ordered it, and I have been using it on some of my chicken dishes, and it is, I don't know, but what it is about these, but when you mix these two together, I mean, it is just a really, really, really awesome combination. I love it. So, and I've tried the two, you know, also by themselves, and they are very good by themselves. And if you're a bit apprehensive about like a hot pepper jam, it's actually, I would say the hot pepper is like, it's enough to give it a little bit of a bite, but the pepper's not overpowering. So it's, like I said, it's kind of like it's just right. Like it gives a little bit of a kick. The Fireball whiskey gives a little bit of a kick, but you know, but it doesn't, like I said, it's not overpowering. And if you combine it with the Pina Colada jam, it's actually, it's really, really, really good. Like the two together, like the sweet with the savory, it's really, really delicious. So I do recommend getting these two together, especially. And as far as I am going to be getting more product from them again. I had to replenish my sweet red wine jelly, and they just recently released, and they mentioned this on the live stream that I had them on a couple weeks ago. They did mention that they would be coming out with a CBD infused jam. And of course, I like CBD, I'm a big fan, so I was really excited about that. And they just released, it was their Elon Farnsworth, like I'm obsessed with the Farnsworth house, so the name Farnsworth on it, I'm there. Alright, their Elon Farnsworth jam, which has CBD in it, so I will definitely be letting you know how that is too. Alright, so now I also said that I was going to be doing a little review on a couple of the Mythology candles, couple of the candles that I got. I would have to say, of all the candles that I've tried by them, I would have to say the Double Breakfast, which is their which is from their Lord of the Rings inspired line. That's one of my favorites. As is the Lamppost. which is from their Always Winter Never Christmas Narnia inspired candle line, and then also the Tudor House Library. I'm obsessed with the Tudors right now, so because I am writing an album based on Tudor England, so so yeah, so of course, you know, anything that's Tudor related, you know, I'm there as well. And so Tudor House Library, that's you know, that I'd say this one though is my favorite. I absolutely, I love burning it, and it really does. The way you would picture a Tudor House library to smell, that's how this smells when lit. So I would have to say, of all the ones that are my favorite, I would have to say the Tudor House Library is probably my most favorite one. And then the lamppost from the Always Winter Never Christmas. I'd say that comes in second, and then third, I would say, is the double breakfast one. The double breakfast one is really good. It actually, if you like the smell of like maple syrup mixed with like, I don't know, sausage and just other things like that, that's kind of what this smells like. So I would have to say these are my top 3 picks from Mythology Candles, at least right now as it stands. They came out with a new candle actually recently called Cave Troll, and I purchased it today, and they're having it for only a limited time. So I would say if you want to like check it out, just kind of go to their website, mythologycandles.com. And like they'll like kind of, you know, you can just like, you know, just click shop candles. And like I said, you know, they released Cave Troll, which I know at first when you hear that, you're like, it's like, yeah, like Cave Troll, you know, how, you know, like how exactly would that smell? But I do trust Mythology Candles, because, you know, I do think that whatever they come up with, they're going to just kind of make it really amazing and very, very immersive, and that's what I appreciate about them. And from what I read about Cave Troll, it's like there's like a moss smell, there's mushrooms, it sounds really, really interesting. So I'm actually looking forward to getting it and seeing what it smells like. And, you know, again, I'll be kind of filling you in on that. So yeah, so that is, so those are, you know, my thoughts on some of my most recent picks. And, all right, take another swig of tea. And now for, another cool little, announcement. So, I decided that I am going to launch an actual podcast this year after all. I at first was going to wait on it because I know I had been talking about doing like an actual like podcast, like pre-recorded podcast. But I decided, number one, I like I do enjoy this whole live streaming thing. Which I am still going to be doing. The Tavern live stream, it's not going away. But I decided, like I said, I do like live streaming. Plus, at the time, I couldn't really decide what I wanted the focus of the podcast to be on. Because, you know, I didn't want it to be, like, so all over the place. Plus, I was already kind of live streaming, and then I got the Tavern live stream going, and I was just like, you know, well, you know, like, where else could I go with the podcast now at this point? Like, maybe kind of put it on the back burner for maybe next year or something like that. But then I was kind of, you know, I was looking at my webzine, the Bonfires, Castles, and Time Travel webzine, and I was, you know, just kind of, you know, thinking of, I was looking to doing couple of book reviews, reviews on, you know, just some like history and fantasy themed books that I was reading. And I was just like, you know what, it would be so much more fun to like talk about what I thought about the books instead of just kind of like writing out the review. And then it dawned on me. I was just like, why don't I just do audio recordings of that? So yeah, so that's basically going to be the basic formula of my podcast. I don't have an exact date of when I'm going to launch it. I'm thinking maybe like beginning of April. And I know what book I'm going to be doing. I'm actually, it's actually going to be a book on corsets. So I'm always a defender of corsets. But it is going to be, yes, but it is going to be like a book on corsets and everything. And the woman who wrote it, Sarah Chrisman, she and her husband actually dress in Victorian era garb pretty much like 100% of the time. And so she's written a couple books based on her experience of that. And so I thought it would be very fascinating to do a book, kind of like review one of those books and just kind of discuss it in my thoughts. So that, stuff like that, that's going to be the focus of the podcast. It's probably not going to have like a set schedule. It'll probably just be one of those things where like how to wear them, I would like to know. I can't breathe in mine. Yeah, I mean, it depends on, yeah, kind of. I mean, it depends though, because, I mean, because there is a difference between, like, say, for instance, because I wear 18th century stays, I've worn Victorian era corsets too. I mean, there's definitely a difference between the two. Most people, myself included, find 18th century stays a lot more comfortable and breathable. But then again, 18th century stays were also made with like a different purpose than, say, the Victorian era corset. But things like that, like I'm probably going to discuss in the first episode. But it's like I said, it's not going to have like a set schedule like, say, this live stream does. It's probably just going to be one of those things where just kind of as I finish a book and I'm able to get like a book, like a review and discussion on it together, that's when I'll do it and launch it and launch the episode. At least for the time being, that's how it's going to be. But like I said, I do have a formula for it now, so I'm going to be probably getting going on it, I'd say, in April. So I'm really excited about that. All right, so on to the women's history. All right, and the women of the taverns. Now, and I have a bunch of books here too, so... All right, so I thought I would start this part out just by discussing a little bit about just my own experiences in the living history world, and just, and what led me to really just want to talk so much about women's history. So I've kind of, in my times in doing things on, like, say, living history sites and, just doing different demonstrations. My main forte is, the clothing, cosmetics, and also music. Those are like my main things. I also love sewing as well. But I've also dabbled a little bit in things like cookery as well, and also blacksmithing. And I will say, being a female in a blacksmith shop and doing blacksmithing, it was definitely an interesting experience, I will say. Not in like the way people are probably initially thinking. It was just, and I'll be the first to say I'm not the world's greatest blacksmith. Okay, I know enough to do a simple demonstration, And I know enough to, make a nail and, kind of show people the basics. In fact, if I had a choice, I would much rather be sewing than smithing. However, there were times when I do like to do things like be in the blacksmith shop, because I think that it definitely raises a lot of very interesting conversations, and conversations that definitely do need to be, they need to be had. And one thing that I noticed was that when I would mention that, yeah, by the way, me being a female and being in the blacksmith shop here, that's actually historically accurate. In the 18th century, that is historically accurate. And there were female blacksmiths of the time. There were women that, helped, that did assist their husbands in their blacksmithing occupations and things like that. And, help with, the family business and all that, that people were very surprised. And I do think, and it is because, they have, a lot of people have this notion, they have this kind of, they have this assumption that, women, just all women prior to, like, say, I don't know, like the 1970s or whatever, that all, that they weren't allowed to work. In fact, I've actually heard people say, oh, well, like say with me being in the blacksmith shop, like saying things like, oh, well, I thought women weren't even allowed to work. It's like, and I'm like, no, they were. They were allowed to work. There were women that owned businesses, especially, if you were like a widowed or a single woman, there were like women that owned businesses, there were women that assisted their husbands. There were women who, after their husband, if their husband passed away or, he fell ill and, wasn't able to run the business, she would take over. And then there were, and I'll get to this in a little bit with the taverns, but there were also, men who would pretty much, like, even if they were able to, they would leave their wives pretty much in charge of most of the affairs of the business. So, and then, then of course that usually confuses a lot of people because they're like, oh, well, that's the opposite of what you normally hear. And it's just kind of like, well, sometimes what you hear isn't, it isn't always correct. And and when I furthered my studies in history, and especially when I got into the living history part of it, I learned that, pretty quickly. So, and it's also very interesting, just seeing how different age groups too react to it. Because, like, even say if I was in, like, the schoolhouse as a school marm, I would have people surprised, over the fact that, yes, women were also school marms, there weren't just male schoolmasters, and like I said, it's really interesting seeing how different age groups react. Like one thing that I did notice was a lot of, like, the oldest people that I would give tours to or do demonstrations for, a lot of, like, the older, like I said, like, older people. And when I say older, I mean, like, maybe, like, late 70s, 80s, I would say, like, maybe 80s. They were actually the least surprised to find, like, when I would tell them that, women were, blacksmiths, and, they did hold these occupations, and, they did assist their husbands, and, and sometimes, like, inherit the business from them. Like, that age group that, like, most people would think would have, like, some of the most, like, kind of antiquated views were actually the least surprised. It wasn't even a question of, oh, did they believe me or not, you know? Like, they just weren't surprised. They were like, oh, yeah, like, yeah, okay, yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Yeah, you know, I knew, yeah, I know that, you know? Like, it was, you know, they, like, which was interesting, because then, when you start to get younger, like, I would say maybe, like, the younger half of, like, maybe the baby boomers on down, and then on down, they were the ones that were surprised. They were the ones that were like, oh my God, really? Like, that's the opposite of what you always hear. So, which tells me at some point along the way, there's been some sort of disconnect in what's taught, you know, in what's been taught over probably even the last, like, I don't know, 50, 60, maybe even 70 years. What's been taught, you know, in history and all that. And it's really interesting seeing how different people react, because a lot of the times, I don't know, because at least it's been my experience, and if you've had a different experience, you know, feel free to comment, but in my experience, it seems, you know, men are willing to listen, but women, it's kind of a mixed bag, because like, I've had, you know, and this is, you know, women of all ages, but I've had, like, some women that are, you know, they're listening, they're really fascinated, they're happy to learn that, you know, yes, you know, women did contribute to, you know, contribute greatly to societies throughout history. And then you have some women who were, it's like they want to hold on to that, you know, narrative for dear life that you know, that says that, you know, women weren't allowed outside their homes, and women, you know, weren't allowed to contribute to society, and I've had people get pretty defensive with me on it too. Like, you know, it's almost like it's like they want to hold on to that narrative for dear life for some reason, when I don't know, I would think that, you know, you would take comfort in knowing that, okay, actually, yes, you know, women did contribute a great deal to society. But yeah, it's very interesting when you talk to the public and you see, you know, different reactions and, you know, and everything. But as for the taverns, or orderlies, as they were also called, all right, so taverns were a really big major staple in especially, well, early America, but also in other parts of the, you know, pretty much any other part of the world too. But in early America, taverns were definitely like the center of everything. In fact, even before the actual post office, the U.S. Postal Service was officially established, taverns were actually, they were your post office. They were your post office. They were your, you know, your travel center. They were your restaurant. They were your hotel. They were pretty much your everything. And one book that, if you're interested in taverns, this is, sorry, this is kind of, it got ripped, but Early American Taverns for the Entertainment of Friends and Strangers. There's a lot of really good information in here, and yeah, and I've gotten a lot of, like, I started doing some research on taverns and things, you know, and just orderlies and, you know, how people traveled back then a few years ago. And I found that this was a very valuable piece of information too. So, but taverns, a lot of them were operated by men, but they were also operated by women as well. Some of them were operated by husbands, wives, their entire families. As far as the women who ran the orderlies and the taverns and everything, a lot of the time they were widows. Widows would often, especially if their husband passed away and didn't really leave them with much money because maybe he didn't have a lot. Widows would often then apply for, they would apply for a tavern license, which a lot of the time they would get because they would apply for the tavern license on the, you know, just kind of on the grounds of hardship. I need to make money, I have a family, I need to support them, etc., and so on. So that was one way a woman could run a tavern. Another one, if you were a single woman and you needed to make money, that was another, you know, you could apply, I'm a single woman, I don't have a husband, you know, I need to make money and, you know, blah, blah, you know, until I get married or whatever. So that was another way. Another way would be if, say she was, you know, if you were the wife of a tavern owner, you often were very much involved with the business. Like I said before, women were the bookkeepers of the business very often. They often did the, you know, they did the inventory. They pretty much did a lot of the background work, and sometimes they were, along with the husband, the face of the business as well. So there were a couple different ways that a woman could have owned a tavern, or like, and then like if her husband passed away, she would then be left, the one left to run the tavern. So that's usually how things like that went down. And one such woman was Christiana Campbell. Now, if you have been to, ever been to Colonial Williamsburg, Christiana Campbell's tavern is actually, well, it's a replica of her tavern. It was established in 1956. And she, and Christiana Campbell, let me see, I celebrate the strong women who endured the Civil War, like Elizabeth Thorne. Yes. And at 6 months pregnant, she dug hundreds of graves. Strong, yes. Yeah, speaking of widows. Yeah, oh, absolutely. I've heard of Elizabeth Thorne. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, her story is just, wow. Like you said, she was 6 months pregnant and like digging graves, you know. But yeah, absolutely. But Christiana Campbell, a replica of her tavern, was established in Williamsburg in 1956. She did live in Williamsburg. She traveled there after her husband passed away, and she, you know, in order to make money for herself and her children, she started renting tavern space until she settled on a permanent location. And it is said that George Washington actually frequented her tavern. So, and she settled in her permanent location in, it was 1774. And the fact that she was able to kind of use her, you know, use her own money to open up her own tavern was actually, you know, pretty remarkable in itself. And she also she did have help from her former landlord. His name was Nathan Waltho. And he also helped her with a bequest, with a money bequest. So she was able to have a pretty successful tavern, pretty much up until she retired. Unfortunately, her original tavern did burn to the ground. However, like I said, the replica was then established in 1956. So if you ever go to Colonial Williamsburg, I'm not sure if it's open right now. I know that there are a lot of places in Colonial Williamsburg that are now temporarily closed with everything that's going on right now. But whenever they open again, I definitely recommend going and checking out Christiana Campbell's tavern. And this book actually also covers a lot of female tavern owners too. One very interesting woman was a woman by the name, I think it was Alice Thomas? Let me see. Margaret Moore, she was another one. Yes, Alice Thomas. Okay, so, a little story time here. So basically, kind of like, kind of like business owners today, whether you are a man or a woman, some tavern owners, they were very lawful citizens. They, they operated their business in the way that, you should operate a business, and they followed the laws, followed the rules, got all the necessary licenses that they needed, etc. and so on. And these were both men and women. But then you had your men and women that, kind of tried to skirt around the law. They tried to skirt around the issues. They tried to cut corners. And when they were caught, they were severely punished. And being a woman did not definitely did not make you immune to being severely punished if you were caught breaking the law. And depending on where you were, sometimes the punishments could be pretty severe. But Alice Thomas, so it says, women did operate taverns where behavioral standards of the day were violated and laws blatantly broken. Alice Thomas, a notorious 17th century woman from Boston, was found guilty of, as they say in quotes, frequent secret and unseasonable entertainment in her house of lewd, lascivious, and notorious persons of both sexes, giving them opportunity to commit carnal wickedness. So the widow Thomas, described as a common bawd, B-O-U-D, which that was a colorful term for a less than pristine woman in the day. She served a prison sentence for receiving stolen goods in her tavern. And she was, she was eventually restored, but after she repaid her fines. But she did prison time too. And then another woman by the name of Mary Wacom, she was indicted by the New York City grand jury in 1714 because she entertained criminal elements, allowed gambling, and ran her tavern as a common tippling house. So, and the grand jury labeled her a woman of evil life. So, yeah. You can. So, oh, hey, how are you? Yeah, you had like I said, whether that tavern owner was a male or female or both, there was a man and a woman running it. You had your ones that were law-abiding citizens. Then you also had tavern owners that, like I said, they didn't quite run it, at least according to what was considered lawful at the time. So, got pretty interesting with tavern owners, I would say. But I find it really interesting, just reading about taverns and reading about people's just journal entries and their experiences with their travels and stopping in different taverns, and how the different taverns varied from, what today might be considered like a five-star motel, five-star hotel, or five-star motel, what am I saying? Five-star hotel to like a hole in the wall, Fleabag motel, basically. So kind of like how, hospitality services today vary. Back, hundreds of years ago, it varied as well. So with the taverns too, I also wanted to briefly touch on a couple of women who are responsible for some very popular early cookbooks, or receipt books as they were called back in the day. So if you are in the living history world, you've probably have heard the name Hannah Glass spoken before, especially if you are into cooking and, just, you know, and, you know, cooking on a hearth especially, cooking any 18th and 19th century dishes. Like I said, you've probably heard the name Hannah Glass before, and her name's spoken quite a bit in the living history community. So, hey Lex. So, so basically, Hannah Glass, I have her book, one of her books right here, The Art of Cookery Made Plain and Easy. It was actually first published in Ireland back in 1747, but then it was published in the States in 1805. So, but she actually wrote it shortly after she and her husband eloped, and she was maybe like 16, 17 at the time. She wrote it after she and her husband eloped, and they were actually struggling financially. So she wrote it as a means of basically trying to raise some funds for her and her husband to live off of. And she wrote it by, basically she collected recipes that were already popular, and she also wrote down some of her own, as well as, and also just some of her family recipes too. And she compiled them into a book, and thankfully, you know, she was able to get it published, and it did quite well. It was a very, very big commercial success. First over in Ireland, and then later on it came over here to the States, and it was also commercially successful here too, and it saw a lot of reprints and all that. And then she also wrote the Servants Directory and a Complete Confectioner. Those two weren't as popular, though, as her Art of Cookery was. And she also worked as a dressmaker, too. And so that was also how she made money. But she's most known for, you know, for her cookbooks, basically. And I've tried some of the recipes from her books as well. We've had quite a number of people, you know, that have, you know, in the living history world that have made a lot of her recipes, and they are very good. So the only thing, I think I said this in an earlier episode, the only thing about recipes from, like, I'd say like 18th, maybe even 19th and early 20th century and like earlier, is that a lot of the time they're written in very, very general terms, like the person who like wrote them down, like they knew like what they were talking about, like they and you know, like, but like it's not like, say, like a recipe today, like where it says like 1 tablespoon of this, like 1 cup of that, you know, things like that. It's very, I don't want to say it's written in a disorganized way, but I guess compared to how recipes today are written, it would seem like it's almost like a little bit like kind of on the jumbled side. But once you like understand and get, you know, and sometimes you just have to eyeball things when you're making like an 18th century dish. Like sometimes you kind of have to eyeball things and like, you know, and experiment a little and see like what, you know, see what might fit and everything. But yeah, but once you do that, they actually, you know, they make some like very, very, very tasty meals. I have had many 18th century meals in my day, and 19th century meals. They're quite good. Another woman is Amelia Simmons, and I also have The First American Cookbook by Amelia Simmons, and this was published in 1796, and it's said to be the first cookbook authored by an American and published in the United States. So Amelia Simmons might have not only been the first female to publish a cookbook in the United States, but also the first American ever to publish her cookbook in the United States. Because, you know, like I said, Hannah Glass, it was published first in Ireland and then came over here. and there were several other women too that also wrote cookbooks, but they were, once again, published in their native country first and then came over here to America. So, that's what makes Amelia Simmons so, kind of unique in that sense, which is pretty cool. And there was actually a very big public demand for her cookbook, and it was kept in print for 35 years after its original printing. And some people have asked, well, did they print it under their names, or did they have to go under like a male pseudonym, which, and because I know that there were some women who wrote books through back in history that, they did have to do that and everything. Based on some of the original copies that I've seen of Hannah Glass and Amelia Simmons and even Mary Rudolph, there were actually, I've seen some of the original prints, and their names are right on it. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it just depended on maybe stuff like that depended on the publishing company. It I think that, with things like that, I think there were a number of factors, that's something that I have been wanting to look into a bit more, because I know with, like I said, there were maybe certain genres or something like that where maybe it was more favorable to have a male, to write under a male pseudonym. And then other genres, it was considered, okay, yeah, you can have a female's name on it. That is something that I want to, I would like to explore a little bit more, and just to because I have noticed that, because it's like sometimes they were, sometimes they weren't, So, yeah, all right, so we're coming up onto the hour now, and yes, thank you for joining. Oh, hey, Art, how are you? All right. Well, thank you, guys. Thank you for joining me on this episode 6 of the Tavern live stream. If you only were able to catch part of it, or you came in a little late, and the replay is going to be available on Instagram, as well as what's up, hey, as well as all of my other platforms here. If not tonight, then definitely tomorrow. So, all right, raise a glass, cheers. All right, one more swig. All right, well, thank you for joining me, and I will definitely, I look forward to seeing you in episode 7, where we'll be post St. Patrick's Day, and we'll be talking a little bit about Celtic myth and legend. I'm really looking forward to that. So, all right, take care and have a lovely Friday night. Have a lovely weekend. Stay well, and I'll see you in the next episode. All right, take care. Have a good night.